Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Way Back, How Sports Innovate and Thrive. I am Dan Kaufman, Sport Techie's Managing Director, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to this episode. The Way Back is a production of Sport Techie Live, and Sport Techie Live is exactly what you see here. It is conversations with industry experts. And if you have not been to a Sport Techie Live session yet, welcome for the first time. You can check out all of our Sport Techie Live sessions at live.sporttechie.com. You'll see other episodes of The Way Back there. We've got about 8 or 9 of them that we've done. And you'll also see our newest series on human performance. And that one we have coming up next week. Our second episode of Human Performance will be on Tuesday next week, not Wednesday, which we typically have these Sport Techie Live sessions on Wednesday. Next week's episode is on Tuesday. It's a human performance episode at 12:30. The reason it's on Tuesday is because on Wednesday, we have what we call our Pro Day. And our Pro Day is a smaller size conference that examines a specific subject within sports technology. The Pro Day on Wednesday is on tracking athletes, quantifying and monetizing performance. So if that's interesting to you, make sure you go to sporttechie.com and check it out. It's free for all Sport Techie Pro members. And one last plug, we have a discount right now for Sport Techie Pro members, 50% off the annual fee, which is $99. So it brings you down to $49. I strongly encourage anyone who's interested to check it out. It's going to be really good. It's virtual, obviously. So that's what's going on next week. But today, I'm very pleased to welcome everyone to today's episode of The Way Back. The Way Back was started in April, May timeframe when we at Sport Techie realized that people were probably really interested in listening to their colleagues about how we're going to bring sports back safely, both during and after COVID. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And in particular today, we're very pleased to have a discussion on reimagining fan communication and engagement. This is supported by Samsung. Samsung, thank you very much for your support, particularly the digital display division and Prism View Samsung. I am going to go over a few logistics, and then I'm going to introduce our panelists, and we will get going. First of all, you'll see on the right-hand side that there are kind of 3 tabs you can click on, and there's one that's chat, and I see people chatting already. Please introduce yourself, say hello, tell us where you're visiting from, and then right next to chat, you'll see questions. Give us your questions. If you've been to a session before, you know that we get to questions throughout. We don't wait till the end, and the point of this is to get you guys involved, the audience involved. So make sure you put your questions in there and make sure you upvote questions that you want answered. And then all the way on the right, you'll see people. You can see everyone who's here. Looks like we've got over 300 folks who are here now, and I think we'll have more coming in as the session continues. So thank you all for being here. I think that's all the logistics I have. So let's get going. So first of all, let me introduce our fantastic speakers today. I'll start with Brett, who's all the way on my right. Go ahead, Brett.
Hey, good afternoon. Brett Unziker. I am with Samsung. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for everybody for joining. Dan, Zach, Donnie. This has been the best day for me so far, and we've just spent the past half hour before everybody joined just talking all things sports and technology, and the 4 of us have had a blast. So I hope the next hour goes as well as the past half hour of us just catching up. But my responsibilities at Samsung is my team is responsible for live events, entertainment, and spectaculars. So really looking forward to be here and talking.
Uh-oh. Well, we lost Brett for a minute, but I'm sure he'll come right back on. Let's go to Donnie. Donnie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi. If Brett comes back, I'll hand it back quickly. Donnie White, CEO, co-founder, Satisfy Labs. We're an interactive search company. Wait, Brett, I saved it for you, Brett. I saved it for you.
You didn't miss much. So go ahead and finish what you were saying, and then we'll transition to Donnie.
Yeah, I don't know where you lost me, but Brett Unziker, my team is responsible for live events, so think sports, entertainment, and the spectaculars verticals at Samsung, and really excited to talk about how we get back to sports, which we all want to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Go ahead, Donnie.
I'm back. We are an interactive search company. We create custom conversational search engines for destinations and experiences. the real value add there is think about all the information being disseminated today, either through text, display, or voice, and how can we really get that in front of customers through really unique search experiences. So we've been around almost 4 years now. We have about 100 sports clients and venues on the product right now, and just thankful to be part of this industry.
Thanks, Donnie. Zach.
Hey everyone, my name is Zach Klima. I'm the founder of WaitTime, and we've developed a first-in-the-world artificial intelligence building system technology that's able to anonymously track and record the movement analysis of people in lines, queues all around the stadium. So concession lines, restroom lines, retail lines, gates. So on the operations side, the data on crowd intelligence, but also on the fan side. Brett, I will steal your description. WaitTime is like Waze for stadiums. So we direct fans to the lines of shortest resistance in real time, because obviously no one likes waiting in line. So glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
Great, thank you guys. So with every session of the Way Back, I like to start by actually taking people back to earlier this year and taking each one of our panelists back to earlier this year, February timeframe, before COVID really hit in the US. And I like to hear kind of the perspective of where you were and what you remember from when it really started to hit, and really more focus on your perspective within your company. What was the focus? What was the goal within your division or within your company? And when COVID hit, tell us how that changed. Don't go into too much detail, but tell us a little bit of how that changed and potentially the opportunities that you saw. And I'm going to start with Brett. So Brett, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, good question. I recall very vividly on March 11th, I was kind of the day the world stopped. And I was flying home from my office in New Jersey back here to Atlanta to be with my family. And by the time I landed that morning, everything was shut down. They started shutting sports down, started shutting all sorts of things down. And at that point, the focus for us changed in that, or first of all, I was scared. I was scared as a sports fan. I was scared as a person whose livelihood is based on sports. But what changed for us really was I was really proud of Samsung, and that our team stood up and said, "Hey, we have a moral responsibility to help." And our alliance team internally at Samsung, as well as our solutions team, really sat down and said, outside of just our core services and displays, what solutions can we put together to bring people back to sports safely? How can we help engage them and offer a better experience in their living room? And how can we help drive with lost revenue? And I was really proud of the way our team came together and met with people like Donnie, met with people like Zach, met with other partners that we have, and came up with solutions to help in this time of crisis.
Well, you mentioned Zach and Donnie, but let's go to Zach. Zach, tell us about what you remember and the direction you were headed. And then also maybe in particular, tell us if you were already talking to Brett before COVID happened, or if that kind of made it go faster, and tell us why the conversation with Brett became, all that more important once COVID came.
Yeah, so when COVID hit, obviously like Brett said, everyone was scared. And obviously the impetus of our system is based off of people being inside of arenas. And so before COVID though, we were what we like to call nice to have. We were a nice to have system. It was kind of a cherry on top. The ones who really took advantage of the system and were the early adopters were the innovators, like the Miami Heat, for example, the Buffalo Sabres, the T-Mobile Arena, things of that sort. And so that was the innovation side. But as COVID hit, though it was scary and though it was a time of unrest and uncertainty, it really transitioned our product from a nice to have to a need to have, because the genesis of our software is knowing where crowds are, knowing where crowds are not, what are they doing, how are fans behaving, basically crowd intelligence, which, as time went on, our inbound lead list just kind of skyrocketed, because people that once said, okay, we know how our concourse is behaving, we know how our fans are navigating through our spaces, Suddenly they didn't, and they kind of rose to the top of the priority list when it came to these different venues. And so that was that. Going to your question about Brett, Brett and I did not meet each other until COVID happened. He reached out almost immediately and said, Zach, your content that you're providing is very relevant. You're on digital platforms out there, like a Cisco Vision, but the content that you have is so relevant. We have a story to tell together. Similar to Donnie White at Satisfy. I've known Donnie for 4 years now. I think we started our company at the same-ish time, and same story with Donnie. I mean, knowing where fans are, knowing where fans are not, and being able to intelligently receive that information is obviously very important. So telling that story and having digital platforms to do that on is obviously pivotal.
Mm-hmm. Donnie, Zach alluded to your relationship. Tell us about where you were before it all happened, when it happened, and how you've adjusted since then.
Yeah, true story. I met Zach in Vegas. That is a true story. COVID's very different, I think, for us. I think we, as Zach mentioned, my partner and I, we have Wall Street technology background. So we had focused on building engines for search of black holes of data, which at the time were inside a game day experience, like food and gates and travel, and even things like who's singing the national anthem were all big time things that people were interested in. So now you take the fans out, but are there new questions that were created? We actually had gotten some questions about a virus from a zoo who had imported a Chinese panda back in February. And then it started to kind of tick up a little bit. So by the time that we sensed something was going on, we were able to actually deploy a COVID assistant product to all of our customers to handle this inbound new question subject that was quite bizarre. Everything from ticketing to cancellations to health and safety. So then we just started thinking, well, what's the new black hole of data? And now we've just opened up the system to really ask anything. So loading in things like statistics, standings, scores, even like a player's TikTok is now something that people want to know. So the queries have actually increased, which have given a higher demand for the technology that we built. We had just always pointed it at the physical location, but now we've escalated it to the entire brand. And unique for me, I got COVID March 16th. I think I was positively tested. I got it from my wife, who's a teacher, and she got it from her school. So for us, it had a dual purpose of, I have a young company with 25 employees that are focused on an area of technology that has a client base with 100% of its customers shut down, and I'm sick and unknown what will happen. So I'm very thankful my symptoms were mild, but it was quite an experience to be both on the health side and on the company side at the same time.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. You shared something that I want to ask about, because I did not know this, but what is this with the panda and importing a panda in February?
So we have about 35 to 40 customers in tourism. So a lot of the data that we are getting, even about the reopen experience right now, is from them, theme parks like Universal Studios. But someone back in February said, hey, this panda from China, can I get the virus from it? It was the first time that the system picked up this indication that there was some new virus. Now, we had actually by March 10th, 50 questions about the virus from 50 different locations and 50 different people. So the aggregate then trained the system, but only because the community is so well networked together. But the panda started it.
Very interesting. So this is a conversation about fan communication at its heart, right? So how do we need to alter, or how are we rethinking fan communication, fan engagement, when it comes to, I think, primarily addressing issues of safety, right? That's probably the biggest piece here. Safety when fans come back to a venue. But there's another piece to it too, and we're going to touch on that as well, and that's that when fans are not in a venue, which many are not right now, right? We have major sports leagues opening in the US right now, and none of them are allowing fans into the stadiums. So there's a communication piece there too. And so we're going to talk about that as well. Creative ways that operators of venues, teams can continue to communicate to fans, whether for safety purposes or for entertainment purposes. But let's start with the in-venue communication. And, we do hope and expect that at some point, I don't know if it's this year or next year, we'll see, we will be back in venues. And whether that's full scale fans in venues or whether it's minimal fans, we will see. But let's assume it's minimal fans, and let's look at that scenario here. And I want to start with Zach, and I want to talk about fan movement, right? So, and I think I'll start by asking this question of you, Zach. Do you, and I'll phrase it this way: before COVID hit, you had to think about moving 70,000 people, maybe more, throughout a venue, right? Now you may have to think about moving 7,000 people at the most throughout a venue. What are the different challenges there? And is it a bigger challenge now to move 7,000 people because you have to think about how they're distanced?
That's a good question, and I'll answer it in a very weird way. So we designed our system. We stayed under the radar for quite some time in terms of we wanted to battle test, excuse my French, the hell out of our system before we started to really scale. And that's actually a conversation I had with Donnie early on. It's like, hey, Zach, you have a very exciting product. And Donnie, maybe you remember this, maybe you don't, but I do. And you can't grow too, yeah, kind of had a couple waters. You can't grow your system too fast. You have to battle test it. You have to scale internally before you scale externally. So with that being said, we started off with some of the innovators. So we started off with the lovely Detroit Pistons, the Palace of Auburn Hills, rest in peace. We started off there, 22,000 fans. And then at that point in time, we gained a lot of press, which allowed us to go to Australia, which is at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, which is at a grand final for AFL grand final is 110,000 people. So what we did is we designed our system to go from 20,000 all the way up to 115,000, 120,000 people. So we started off in the most volatile environments with different crowding conditions. We've seen millions of fans with our software and have moved millions of fans with our software. And we started off with really the highest type of capacity for a venue. So we started off with the most extreme situation on the other side of the handle. Scaling it back is actually an easier part. Now, if it's 70,000 or 7,000, it's really, I want to say it's easily accomplished, but it's easier than what we've done so far. And it's really not about moving the fans. It's how you move the fans. So that's why it's so important to have partners like Samsung and Satisfy, where you have to intelligently message the fans where they need the information and where they're used to getting the information. So, to scale it back to where it is now is actually, kind of where we started. And we've gone upwards of, 100,000 people. So it's going to be interesting, but, we're well prepared for it. And that's why it's really good to have innovative partners that really push the envelope, like Samsung, like Satisfy, and others that help to create the intelligent operational messaging for the wait time system, as opposed to when we first started, we were in like our own little silo. And obviously that was hard to sell. But now that you attach yourselves to the right partners, not just partners, but the right partners, really helps to tell a cohesive story moving forward.
Just one thing, as Zach was saying, earlier he said his company had previously been a nice to have, whereas now it's a need to have. I think that they're capable of understanding venues at max capacity. But what's going to be interesting when there's fewer people is not that part, but where are they going and why? And those are the type of things Zach and I've had conversations ad nauseum about, kind of partly predicting what we think is going to happen and partly really excited about the data that we're capturing between our three organizations as to fan movement. When people do come back to venues, if they have a ticket on the floor, but they're sitting in the 300s, why are they doing that? If they're going to a concession stand and bailing out after 7 minutes of waiting in line, why is that? The good news is we can predict all of those things, and we'll have the data around it to help enhance that experience, to help drive revenue.
Brett, let's jump to you then. I mean, tell us more then about some of the additional or the reimagined signage. Let's use that reimagined term, but the reimagined signage that you expect to have in venues when there are less people, right? And when we have to be concerned still about social distancing. And describe more of the conversations you've had with Zach.
Yeah, I think we're seeing use cases right now that are requiring more signage, more communication, because fans need to know where to go. They need to know what to do. It's kind of like that first time for many of us months ago when you walked into the grocery store and they had like the arrows on the floor one way, and we all scratched our head because it was so bizarre. We need to take all of that information, all of these new operational measures that are in place, and make it really seamless for the fan. So I think there is going to be a need for display technology in that case, but more importantly, I think is how do you take the investment in these things that have to happen because of COVID, right? Nobody was budgeting for or planning for, and how do you take them from this sunken CapEx cost and change it into a revenue generator? Whether that's things like we don't have somebody on the call to discuss it, but things like we have programmatic advertising, so we can leverage our CMS system along with programmatic advertising for fully customizable yet passive revenue streams, right? So that whether it's Zach, whether it's Donnie, whether it's things Samsung's doing, all of these things are necessary now, but provide long-term value for people.
Yeah, let's put a pin in that advertising piece because I think that's definitely interesting. I want to get to it later, but let me jump back to Zach real quick and then we'll to Donnie. But Zach, the question I have is, if pre-COVID you were thinking about moving people effectively through a bathroom line potentially, or moving them from one line to another line that's less crowded, just effective ways of getting people to where they want to go. I'm guessing that safety maybe wasn't the highest thing that you were thinking about, although it's always relevant. But now safety is like the probably most important thing, I would imagine. Tell me what, I think we talked a little bit in the pre-call about that it's not so much that you can measure if people are 6 feet apart, but it's more just measuring the density of people. Is that fair? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So, same product as before, but it's a different story that we're telling now with an angle of safety. So before it was about the fan experience, and that's why we got kind of lumped into you're a nice to have, you're not a need to have. But as time is going on and the transition is happening from nice to need, is because of the safety lens. So the way that wait time works is, we mount cameras above every line, and we have our artificial intelligence that disseminating crowd behavior below the cameras. And so with that being said, if you think about our current state and time right now, knowing where people are and knowing where people are not, those are risk zones, for lack of a better phrase, or risk zones. So we're now telling the story of you need to know, as a fan, to feel comfortable to go back into these arenas and stadiums. You want to know, is it a good time to leave my seat? Not because of, waiting in line, which is a huge dissatisfier in itself, but risk. You want to know where people are. You want to know where people are not, more than ever now, because of that risk zone. So our technology, it's not about identifying 6 feet between people, because you can have a family of 5 and you're all, you're quarantined together and you don't have the virus, but it's all about below the camera, the square footage. If you have a certain capacity of occupancy in that square footage, send an alert to my operator, threshold triggers, send an alert to my operations staff that this or that is going on, and they can deploy resources accordingly. So we were more of that fan experience side, because no one likes waiting. So it's a transition experience side to an operational intelligence side that they've never had before in the industry, about knowing where people are in real time with a very high degree of accuracy. And then, using that to increase your awareness and your intelligence of knowing what's happening, which then ultimately translates to a better fan experience, which is the first way that we were selling wait time. So it all in this circle. But the lens that we have now that's more effective for everyone is health and safety.
Interesting. Donnie, I'm going to jump to you. And, I think the question I'll ask you is, consider the same scenario that Zach and Brett just talked about, where it's limited fans. And the primary thing that fans want to know about is safety. It's not so much fun and enjoyment. The primary thing that they want to know about is safety. How does Satisfied Technology address that primary concern?
Yeah, I mean, we were part of Universal Studios reopen with the theme parks. We handled 6,000 questions the first day that were not related to how long is the wait at the Hulk, and it wasn't related to, how to buy a ticket. It was all about, what do I have to bring? What's the face mask policy? Is it restrictive or passive? Can I bring more than one person, or certain items I need to exchange? Is the water park open? So seeing the tourism industry reopen has really given us a strong platform to provide this information timely. We're about, I think it was 6 times the number of questions on average per day that you would normally get, even with a 25% capacity. So imagine the numbers there. There's a quarter of the people, but 6x the usage if you look at month over month in the same locations prior. So the amount of information that people need now to come, and this is all prior to visit. So you're seeing people now, like on a Thursday, deciding if the restrictions are enough or actually too restrictive that it's not enjoyable for them to come. And so the ability for these destinations to make them feel safe and secure with enough information is really important. Talking to Samsung before and discussing it, like the dissemination of information through a mobile search product like ours is obviously my bias, but I see the platform really being accelerated by good displays. I see, Zach's wait time data coming in to give a better answer. Like, I think the more companies that merge the data into a more positive experience for the customer, we will be able to reopen faster, as long as health and safety is, primary concern. But I do see all of these companies, and there's 10 companies on this call. If we all work together, I think we could make a much better experience.
We've got some questions coming in. I want to get to a couple of them. Zach, I think you're answering one from Nairi Allen right now. But let's go ahead and give it to the entire audience, and then you can give a verbal answer. The question is, how will WaitTime partner with and analyze mobile ordering technologies to help social distancing and managing customer flow with F&B and merchandise in venues as they reopen? Zach, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, so we work intimately with all of the food and beverage companies. And obviously they're going through a transition now where they're going to have lockers for pickup. They're going to have mobile ordering, which I knew way before when I first started WaitTime was caused potentially some logistical issues. And so it's all about that symbiotic, no matter how many lockers there are for pickup or different strategies there are for to mitigate, friction in terms of on the concourse, there's always going to be crowds of people. And so knowing where those crowds are and knowing where they are not, and using that information to feed into the logistical awareness of, the different companies delivering food or delivering to these lockers. There's no matter what, we were just in a SBJ article, there's always going to be lines no matter what. It's the natural tendency and the natural unfolding of what's going to happen no matter what. So a way for WaitTime to integrate with these companies is we have an open API feed that no matter what we're monitoring, whether it be a more mobile order line or a locker pickup or a concession, an ATM or whatever, where there's crowds of people, that information is readily available through our API every second. So I know it's a little bit of an ambiguous answer, but it really depends on the different progressive natures of the companies we work with and how they want to use our information. Of we know where people are and we know where they're not. Everything in between is really up to them, but we can give them the keys to the car. It just depends on how they want to drive it.
Interesting. We had another question come in from Penny Trutman, and Brett, I saw that you answered it there, but I think it'd be great if you expanded upon it a little bit. Penny's question is, Samsung is now an essential business. We all need TVs. There's a huge opportunity there. Will Samsung be able to track any other data about the fans besides from the purchase? Are they thinking about fan data and capture in other ways? Brett, do you want to say a little more on that?
Yeah, I think there's a variety of solutions we have. One, partnering here with Wait Time in terms of using cameras and looking at people and crowd masses, as Zach just talked about. And kind of as I touched on earlier, if somebody leaves the line, why are they leaving it? We're also utilizing things like from the moment you park your car at a venue and you get out of your vehicle, we can actually check your temperature with thermal sensors, and then track your movement with any device, whether it be a phone, whether it be a watch that has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or NFC, and track somebody's movement up to the venue. If they have a temperature, it's up to the venue to decide what they want to do with that. They may want to talk to the person, and they want to change the signage and put them to a secondary screening. But the real aha beyond that is it's not just applicable to coronavirus in this bad situation we're in now, but tracking that movement and behavior on how they behave inside the venue provides value now and provides value long term from a revenue generation standpoint. I think that's kind of one of the keys, really, when you look at Donnie's company or Zach's company. Is this is all about data, and the amount of data that we can get you that really helps us figure out what we should be communicating, and helps us figure out how to engage fans. Both of their companies do that, as well as other solutions that we have.
We had a question come in from Fred Matthews. Fred, thanks for the question. And I'll see if you guys have anything to say about this. I have not looked into it, but he says Louisville just hosted 4,850 fans in their brand new 15,000 seat stadium. Are you following these open events now as case studies already for future reopenings in larger stadiums? Anyone care to comment on that?
Yeah, we are following it quite closely, although I need to give them a call. I didn't know I didn't follow that one, so I appreciate the look. But when you think about the sports events or gatherings of large people, like there's a music festival that just got permission to do a 5,000 seat out where Bonnaroo site is. We usually do the Bonnaroo Music Festival, but now there's a lot of these, not just drive-ins, which are important, but also the physical attendance. A bunch of our clients actually have started launching these ideas, and what's fascinating is actually the number one intent across our tourism clients is, how do I buy a ticket? And a lot of it is relative to the policy and returns. You still have a huge interest in purchasing. Even some of our teams right now are into this huge interest in purchasing. What I can tell you is unique about these events, at least from the data we have right now, there's a high question about food. Who's touching my food? Will it be prepared the same way? Is it customized? And also, like, what the gate entry and scheduling times look like. Like, can I reserve my spot to enter? That's a huge query right now. If you go to a restaurant, almost all of them are requiring reservations, which is something that not everyone did, and walk-ins were still something that we were used to. Now you pretty much have to always reserve. These sporting events are finding that spacing out the entries, spacing out the experience, and then probably consolidating the food are going to be needed, but it's still early days. So I think we'll need at least some majors to launch before we'll really get it. Even right now, I could give you 20 or 30,000 questions about people that are preparing to go to a future baseball game. I could already tell you what they want to know.
Interesting. Donnie, I'm going to stick with you and go to a question that's from the audience. It's the most popular question, upvoted the most, from Ben Habron. Ben, thanks for the question. It's what kind of sponsorship opportunities exist within Satisfy's capabilities and platform? New revenue opportunities. Certainly want to touch on it. Go for it, Donnie.
It's thank you for the question. I didn't ask you to ask that, Ben, but I appreciate meeting you now. That's another new thing for us. It was something we hadn't pushed, but we had done something with American Express in the past at a tennis tournament a few years ago, and we actually have 3 use cases right now that have really been ideas of our clients. We started a company, and then all the ideas after that, I tell you, are client ideas. But everything from having a digital signage banner on our chat page, which now brands are interested in, avatars, so that the actual search experience can be governed by, like, a Samsung, Brett, if you want to call me after, you're more than welcome. But, like, an avatar, or actually the answers themselves. So if you saw any of our work around, like, beer brands, hey, what's the best beer here? We have clients that have put a certain brand there with a map to all those beers, so that you can actually change the behavior of purchase. When people search, They have something in mind about what they want, but they can be influenced. I could show you data that 2/3 of the time we could influence where someone goes because their search is open-ended. So that's, I think, the three best ways that sponsors can get involved. And we actually don't candidly charge the sponsors. That's all ROI back to our teams. That's an area that we think they could just get added value from our product.
Is there an interesting opportunity now with fans entirely at home as opposed to in the venue for sponsorship? Tell us about your thoughts there.
So we're actually announcing phase 1 of our new product for the at-home sports fan launches hopefully tonight. It's in partnership with Major League Baseball, Apple, and Google. Apple has approved their side. Google hopefully will approve their end tonight. A ton of these questions, just like in Google, you have an AdWord business that says, oh, here's the ad I'm going to put in front of you. If I showed you the search data of like the Minnesota Twins as an example, or even previous seasons like with the Cleveland Indians, creating this AdWord content database is really exciting. So people asking a lot of this information and then putting a suggestion at the end, we're putting that back in the hands of the team. So whereas a third party was really controlling that, by the way, Google's on our board, so don't think that we're not friends, they're investors in the company, but they also see that localizing ad search is a very new idea. And I think that's a way that sponsors can benefit from the at-home experience.
Brett, new revenue opportunities from your perspective. You mentioned it earlier in our chat about programmatic advertising. Tell us a little bit about what you're thinking there in particular for opportunities when venues are not open to fans.
Yeah, I think that first of all, I think that again, as I've said before, the competition of the living room and sitting at home where you know what the line to the bathroom is and you know where to get your beer or your water, as Zach said earlier. That's going to be all the more fierce as people come back, right? So I think this whole idea of a curated experience, the moment you get out of your car till you get to your seat, is important, and that's where I think that's a new opportunity. I think the other one really is, a lot of people on the call have lost revenue, I would imagine, with sports being shut down, and ensuring that you get the right message to the right fan at the right time is really important. And this can be done with a very, very minimal, if any, human capital lift, so that we can do things. We can do things like if the average height goes from 6 feet to 3.5 feet, we can dynamically change that ad profile to target, instead of Donnie and Zach for Budweiser, we changed the profile to my 5-year-old and targeted to Disney princesses, right? So whatever that might be, as venues come back, I think they're all the more going to be looking to fill the 300 some odd nights a year that they don't have sports, that they have Disney on Ice, that they have the circus, whatever it might be, and making sure that you hit that proper messaging to drive revenue is really important.
There's a question that came in from Scott Olivenbaum, and Scott's been a frequent questioner, so we appreciate it, Scott. Thank you. And it looks like Zach answered it, but I want to expand upon it a little bit. Scott's question is, how realistic is it for many teams, stadiums, to make an investment in tech like wait time or like Satisfy or like Samsung's tech, given the current economics? It's a question that's come up regularly on the way back, and some people have answered it in this way. They've said, now's the best time, right? Because now's when you can actually take the time to consider these innovative solutions to problems that maybe, to Zach's point, were not a problem 6 months ago and now are a must-have. But I'd be interested to hear more from any of you about that thought, about when you're talking to your potential clients, how do you convince them that this is the right thing they should do?
I'll take that one. That's a great question. I hear that all the time. So I can probably write a book about it if I knew how to write. But so with that being said, wait time was, that nice to have thing. But when it becomes revenue generative, it becomes a rather no-brainer. And so, by what I mean by that is this. With all of the digital displays like Samsung that host the wait time content that are strategically positioned throughout the concourse, it is not some, foo-foo advertising. It's not some gimmicky fan experience thing. This is operational, relevant content. I don't know who likes waiting in line. So with that being said, we've done a number of studies across all the years of our existence of it's a number one looked at digital asset in a venue on concourse, because people are trying to find the path of least resistance because they're there. They have a captive audience for 3-4 hours. They want to maximize their time. So with that being said, the amount of net new advertising space that we have created on our digital assets on the screen, like with Samsung, is significant. So when there's a brand, like for example, the Miami Heat sold American Express on our digital signage. So American Express presents wait time, and they're able to activate different marketing strategies on our system while fans are looking at the signs because they want to know where the path of least resistance is. It becomes revenue generative in under 2 years. So with that being said, once it becomes so low risk to a venue where even us, wait time can bring a brand to the table to help subsidize the cost, it becomes a no-brainer after that. That's number one. Number two is when you have the information of knowing where fans are, knowing where fans are not, especially in this current climate of the world, you're exactly right, Dan. Different organizations have reprioritized and continue to reprioritize where they're spending, CapEx or OpEx or whatever it may be, because what's actually important to the fans, what's actually important to operations, and that's where, obviously you can get a little fired up here, but with that being said, it's kind of a rare breed of product where it's the operation side and the fan side coming together harmoniously because of the content is relevant. It's not some sort of feed that is more subliminal. This is operationally relevant to every single person that's in the venue, which people can capitalize upon with net new sponsorship.
Yeah, I think Zach, just real quickly with your solution as an example, being camera agnostic with largely empty venues right now, whether it's Zach's solution, whether it's solutions we have around thermal with other sensors. It's the kind of thing right now. Venues are empty. They need to do this. Now is the time, and it's actually a pretty easy install, at least for Zach's product. Really easy and really timely to do now, not just because you have to do it, but because of the long-term value.
We got a great question, I think, that came in, and it's for you, Zach. It's from Asher Weiss, and it looks like you were just about to answer it, but let's the whole audience here. What are the benefits to using wait time camera data over just using phone location data? This is our top question right now.
Again, I could go on for a couple weeks about this, but wait time's camera is we're directly overhead, so we anonymously track the actual human body. So, and of course we can connect on this and I'll show you the entire system, but we track the actual human body, which means that if you're tracking a Bluetooth signal, a Wi-Fi signal, whatever else, you can turn off your Bluetooth, you can turn off your Wi-Fi. Privacy is a huge concern with that these days. And we are tracking the actual human body anonymously, which you can't turn off your human body. So we track the head, the shoulders, the arms, which allows us to become very accurate. High 90s accuracy with our technology because you can have duplicate devices. You can have an Apple Watch and a phone in your pocket. You're double counted. There's all different types of things that, beacons were a thing 5 years ago, and they have since fallen off, significantly because of A, privacy concerns, and B, accuracy concerns, where when you have optics, the only way that you can actually accurately track people is through optics, because not only do you have the system in terms of, you have this data, but you have the visuals to corroborate the data. So it's really a twofold answer, but that's the reason why we went down that route. And, going back to when I first met Donnie and, way back in the day, I met someone who used to run technology for the Detroit Red Wings, and he goes, Zach, I appreciate your idea. The only way to do this is through optics. And I'm like, okay, there we go. That's it. And it's unfolded, and it's evidenced itself to be really the only way that you can do this accurately.
Thanks for that answer, Zach. Got a question here from Timothy Weaver, and Timothy's question is an interesting one, I think, and one kind of going back to the ROI and how you're talking to potential customers about this. But Timothy says, for those of us in older venues, are these tech options really something that makes financial sense? How do you approach that challenge of a venue that, you know, it might have a hard time even handling the tech that you want to offer them?
Donnie, you want to go?
Well, I was going to say, I'm sure Brett might be next. You know, our technology is heavily mobile, so the opportunities of enhancing the data are there. Like if wait times is there, there's a data enhancement. If Samsung's there, there's a display enhancement. But if some or all of those aren't available right now, I think you can prove the ROI very quickly by getting something started. We work with stadiums in minor league baseball, which is actually one of my favorite industries to work in, all the way up to the music festivals where it's literally tents and like a trailer. So I don't know if the age of the venue necessarily is the problem. I get what you're saying, where making things financial sense comes down to proving ROI. I think there's enough data that you'd be able to prove a pretty quick return on any investment. But for my company specifically, sports is a relationship business. I think relationships are why we've been successful and why we've gotten through COVID with many of you on the phone. So if I can help you with your venue, even in any way, I'd love to do it, just because I think we're kind of on this together anyway, and like we'll figure it out. So that's what I would say to you.
Yeah, I think good question. We were just on the phone last week. I won't say the name of the venue, but I'll just say it's a very old university with a very old and iconic stadium. Classic, I guess is a better word. And they had a very similar question, but the statement that they made was, we've come to realize that without technology, we might not be relevant in 10 years. And right now, I think, you know, with coronavirus, the overall sentiment of their message was it's forcing their hand to make some of these investments right now. So we're doing with them, just like what Donnie said, we're being thoughtful about what does it look like, what's the ROI, and kind of doing things in stages.
There's a question here from Costa Claudinos. Hey, Costa, how are you? The question is, I see potential synergies between wait time and Satisfy as they can be complementary technologies. Have you guys looked at any applications where you can work together to provide value for venues? And I would, you know, lump Samsung into this as well. You guys have talked about it extensively, but when we got on the call initially, you know, what does that vision look like? You know, if all three of you could come together and work together, what are we going to offer to fans as it relates to communication and engagement? Who wants to start?
Awesomeness. Like I think you know, like I said kind of earlier, the more technologies partner together, the better experience for the venue and for the fan. You know, like Zach and I since Vegas have said, you know, how can we work together? Now, for me, there's a very natural way where if I look at 25 to 40% of the questions actually come before the event, and then 60% come at the event. At the event, there are people that are still on their phones that have a lot of information that they need. And the health and safety being, I think health and safety being number one, and then obviously revenue being, you know, as important, and then experience in whichever order you want. But we would be able to now serve up so much better information for the fan to be safe. One of the top questions is, how do I get to my seat? Well, how do I get to my seats different now? It might not be the path that it was originally. Oh no, did I kick? I kicked? That was good. It might not be the path that I had originally. Now there might be a safer path because Zach's feeding us. Or maybe there's information on display because of the trending searches that are coming in, that now there's a screen that's giving fans a new direction. So when they walk into the stadium, they don't even have to ask because there's a proactive data stream going on with a display unit. So I just see now getting better information that fans want and taking more inputs will just make the experience so much better.
Yeah, I think we're starting to do that between the three companies. I mean, it's the amount of data and you know, using Donnie on the mobile side and really saying, you know, hey, what time do you need to be there, right? A lot of venues now are saying if it's a 3 o'clock game, you know, Dan is supposed to come at 2, Donnie is supposed to come with his family at 2:30, and Zach and I are supposed to come at 2:45. So, driving that communication as to, when do I get there, where do I go, and then incenting the proper behavior inside the venue is kind of at a high level how our three companies are working together.
Yeah, and also, with wait times data on crowd intelligence, crowd behavior, being able to leverage that data and to be successfully communicating that with Satisfy and with Samsung is unbelievably important, because wait time can have all the data in the world, but if we don't have, unbelievably innovative platforms like Satisfy and Samsung to broadcast it to, then it's really kept internal at that point in time, and then the fans don't feel comfortable, and ultimately to our point of getting fans back in the stadium. So Costa, you're absolutely right when it comes to the synergies between us, and it's a different way to broadcast our information to the fans, like a digital platform, within the concourse with Samsung, and on the mobile side with Donnie. It's really a hand in glove fit, and that's why there's this three-legged stool, I'll call it, is going to be, a powerful engine.
So I have a question. We're talking a lot about messaging on a mobile app and the importance of that, and no doubt incredibly important both for fans at home and for fans coming to stadiums. Is there a segment of the population, a demographic though, maybe it's an older demographic that is just either doesn't have that mobile phone capability or is not as savvy with that mobile phone, that are now going to kind of be left out of this conversation? And particularly if it's an older demographic that's left out, who probably have more susceptibility to COVID and other kinds of distancing requirements. Is there a concern about that, and how do we potentially address that through other messaging techniques? I suppose, Donnie, that's a question for you.
Crazy. There's some crazy data out there that I just think is totally misunderstood. Like, we actually have a large investment from the Broadway community. Broadway buyers or the Broadway visitors are typically the demographic that you're speaking of. Typically older, like maybe a little younger than my parents. I'm so young, I'm only in my 20s, so maybe one day I'll get to that demographic. But at some point, you get to this, like, is there a segment of the population that won't use this? In Broadway, they're buying tickets through bots that we have, which we thought was crazy. And when we did some of the study, we said, well, this is not supposed to be the person using it. It comes down to convenience. So a lot of the work that we're doing, like with the Apples and the Googles of the world, show us that even voice is actually a more adaptable method for the demographic that you think is less advanced. My father-in-law is blind and has cancer. He talks to Siri all day, and he sends me verbal text messages all day. Like, he's always in the loop of what's happening in sports. So I think that the modalities of the pre is mobile, but I do think that it's a requirement that the displays be prominent, because there is still a little disconnect of that demographic of, I can use it while I'm here. I still think that's a little bit of a, did I download the app is a good question, like if I'm a infrequent visitor. So I think there's potentially the mobile pre, and I do think you'll see a lot of display requirements when you're physically there.
Interesting. Let's see. Let's get a few more audience questions here. I've got one from June Lee, and June says, curious to hear what the panelists thought was an interesting best-in-class fan integration experience for live telecasts in the no fan in stadium COVID era. MLS virtual jumbotron plus KBO cardboard cutouts have been very interesting things that may stick around after fans are back. Any thoughts there, guys?
I'll tell you, I live on a golf course, and I'm a golf fan, and I have enjoyed watching the PGA with mic'd up players. I think that's interesting because we've always seen that in other sports. We are talking to, I won't mention the teams, but we are talking to some organizations that aren't doing the cardboard cutouts because you're kind of stuck with that. They're actually looking at putting LED technology in somewhere in the first 5 rows around the outside of the rink, and they're doing this for 2 reasons. One, to make up for lost advertising revenue for static signage inside the building that isn't getting airtime, so you can see it when the broadcast is going. And then they're also partnering with a company, like a Zoom WebEx type company, to actually pipe fans in, so fans can actually video conference themselves and see themselves on TV on these displays, which I thought that was just pretty interesting.
Great questions, everyone. Thank you. Keep them coming. We've got a lot, and I'm going to try to get to as many as possible in the next 5 minutes. If we don't get to them, don't worry. You can still send them to stlive@sporttechie.com, stlive@sporttechie.com, and I'll do my best to work with the guys here to get it answered. This question is from Robert Jordan. And Don, I see you're typing already, but let's go ahead.
That's better. Great question. Technology, data is fairly inaccessible. I was going to write, even in the most advanced organizations, you'll see that the commonality of a data pool is super rare. So I know
go ahead and let's read the question though.
Sorry. With venues traditionally using siloed land and infrastructure and systems not integrated, leaving some data as inaccessible, what springboard do you see for your product if the venue is fully integrated? Have you had access to all the venue data?
Thanks.
That's a luxury that I have not yet seen, to be in that type of a data environment. Typically, it's all disparate data that needs to be combined and merged. Like, we could have as many as 3 or 4 feeds and an Excel spreadsheet and someone's PDF all contributing to the knowledge base. If you do create something like you're describing, we just met with a company that manages tech for 100 universities. They've created basically a CMS system that aggregates their web, their social, their POS, their ordering capabilities, and put it into one place. That is a dream for a company like ours, because now we can essentially take the CMS, make that the feeder, use natural language generation along with the natural language processing on the front, and it can do everything. So the capabilities of the product are limited by not having what you're describing. As soon as you unlock that gate, it's going to be amazing. So if you have that, let me know. I'd love to work on that if you have that.
Thanks, Donnie. We've got a question from Jonathan Benai, and Zach is all set to answer this one. The question is, how do you think consumers react to the eventual mainstream adoption of AI and machine learning? I was watching a video of Amazon new grocery stores in Seattle and thought some consumers would fear their every move being tracked. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, so we get that question all the time about privacy, GDPR. I've heard it. Are you guys Skynet? Are you going to deploy a bunch of T2s to come take over the world? I've heard it all. So with that being said, the answer is all about mindset. Are you progressive or are you not progressive? People are risk adverse to new technology. That's the struggle that Waittime has had for some time now. And Donnie, I'm sure you get this too. You're an AI chat bot. Are you guys getting my information? Do you have my credit card? All that kind of stuff. And the answer is we're here to help. We are all anonymous with our tracking. We don't store any video. We're there to give operations insight to then use effectively to increase the patron experience. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for. It's not about making people feel uncomfortable. And so once, and this onus is on me to continually educate leaders in the industry, like everyone here, about what's happening with our data and why it's not invasive or not invasive. So it all depends on the mindset, but we all are anonymous, and we streamline that data to help with operations to ultimately help with the fan experience.
Great answer. We're going to stop there, guys. Thank you so much to the audience. If we did not get to your question, as I said, send an email to stlive@sporttechie.com. Next week, we are not on Wednesday. Sport Techie Live next week is not on Wednesday. It's on Tuesday, and it's a human performance session. Subscribe to the Sport Techie newsletter, and you will stay up to date on that. As well as next Wednesday, next week, we do have our Pro Day, and that is on tracking athletes, monetizing, and quantifying performance. Please make sure you check that out as well, especially if you're a pro member. If you're a pro member, it is free. We've got some great speakers lined up. My speakers for today were fantastic. So the speakers next week have a lot to live up to. Zach, Brett, Don, thank you very much for your time. We could not do it without you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great day.